Welcome back again. Fred here. And today, as you can see, we have another lovely book review, and this time it's about the book called The Defining Decade from Meg Jay, who's also a TEDx speaker. And this book is an amazing book, again, very amazing. It's written by a psychologist, and she had a lot of patients in her office who were in their 20s, and then she decided like, hey, I see a lot of recurring problems from people in their 20s, and I have some things to say about it. So she wrote this book. It's very short, but it's super amazing. And I want to divide this video into 3 parts again. First, I want to start with work, then love, and then the brain. And it all comes together in the 3rd part, so make sure that you stick around long enough, because that's where it's going to start to make sense. So let's start with number 1, work. Meg Jay really found out with some of her patients that they thought that having a job in your 20s or caring about a job in your 20s is not that important, because you have all the time in the world to figure out what you want to do and what you don't want to do. Well, yes, you do have time, that's right. But again, this will make sense in the 3rd part of the book. But it's important already that you decide, or that you think about your 20s, where you want to end up. At what company do you want to end up? What do you like? And it always starts with the question, who are you not? To figure out who you are, you need to think about what are the things you don't like, because that's easier than to say I like this or I like that. So start with thinking about what don't I like, and at the end you will find a range of things that you probably do like. This worked very well for me. Then there's another thing called the unthought knowns. Unthought knowns are things that you know about yourself but you forgot. And I recently had the same experience with this, where I always knew that I did things a certain way. For example, I'm a very visual learner, but I never realized until... As I was saying, I always thought that I was a very visual learner, but I never realized it until a year ago. And that's one of these unthought knowns. Like, I knew about it the moment that I realized it, but I've never thought about it before. But now that I know it, I know that I need to find a job that appreciates this creativity and this need to have an overview and to do it in a visual way. Now that I know it, I can apply it for my work later on. And this is where we come to the 2nd part of the video, which is love. Meg Jay has a lot of patients as well in her office who discussed a lot of things about, people who have a relationship in their 20s. It's a very important moment, because people are probably in relationship for a few years, or they just got one and they feel like this should be the relationship for the rest of their lives, which makes sense. But it also gives a lot of pressure. People who are in current relationships are doubting whether it's the right relationship, and people who are not in a relationship are thinking about rushing into one. Meg Jay very accurately describes what important questions you should ask yourself if you're in a relationship, for example. Is it a relationship with someone who makes you grow, or is it someone who's putting the brakes on you? And Meg Jay has this amazing graph called the Big 5. I will show it here, which is about 5 characteristics where you can either be attributed high or low to that characteristic. For example, are you outgoing? Are you very outgoing or more introverted, for example? Well, if you compare this with your partner, you should see if you would be likely to last in a relationship if you would live together. Because when you're not living together yet, most problems are not a problem until you live together, because that's the moment where friction comes, because you are living together, you're doing everything together, or at least it could be the case. So you can put it here and you can think about it. Why am I talking about relationships here, and what does it have to do with the defining decade? Well, that's where we come to the last part of the book called the brain. And this is where it all comes together. So stick with me. We always knew that our brain had a growth spurt in the first 18 months of our lives. This is where you as a baby, so baby Fred, he's coming alive and he gets a little bit of vocabulary and he's learning a little bit of visualizations around him, and he's trying to recognize certain things. But then we thought that was about it. When you're 18, your brain has stopped growing and that's it. But that's not the case, actually. Because researchers found out that in your 20s, your brain is actually going through another growth spurt. And this is not a growth spurt where your vocab is increasing and all that kind of stuff, but your brain is still rewiring certain connections in your neurons. So what's basically happening is your brain has all these neurons and connections, and in your 20s, your brain is the most likely to change these connections the most quickly. What does this mean? Is that in your 20s, your brain can adapt the quickest, the fastest, and in the most flexible way. So in your 20s, you can, in general, learn something new the fastest. You can change yourself the fastest. What this means is that your 20s is an opportunity, but it can also be a great risk, because you can change in either the good direction or in the wrong direction. And this is where work and the relationships come together, which I talked about in the beginning of the book. Because if you're in a toxic relationship or a bad relationship, it affects your brain the most in your 20s. If you are unhappy with the job you're in, or you have no idea who you are, it can badly affect your brain, because in your 20s your brain is still vulnerable, if I can call it like that. It's the most vulnerable in your 20s. So when you think about the first part of the video and the second part, and now think about that your 20s actually is such an important period for your brain, I hope that you might reconsider certain things for work, or you might reconsider things for relationships, or just think about it in general. And I hope that this nudges you in the right direction to think about these things, and that you make the wise choice. Hereby I want to end this book review from The Defining Decade from Meg Jay. I really hope that you liked this book review. If you liked it, please like the video. If you didn't dislike it, please subscribe if you haven't done so already, and please comment in the video down below what your thoughts are about it. Do you want to read this book? Do you want me to review another book? Let me know. I'm very curious to hear from you. As always, stay positive, be happy. Fred out.